Life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 with Neil Johnson on Vision.
Another opportunity today to talk about using Christian tracts with the pastor whose ministry wants to get tracts into the hands of Aussies absolutely free of charge. All you got to do is make the best use of them. Well, we want to be able to use them effectively, and so, therefore, some level of understanding about how you use a Christian tract might be useful. Vince Wall is back with us. He's the founder of His Word Media and also pastor of the Newcastle Baptist Tabernacle. Printing tracts is opening doors for ministry for Vince, and Vince is back with us. Vince, welcome to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Great to be back.
Vince, when I say opening doors, you're getting invitations from places, even interstate from where you are, to be able to do some training around tracts and to be a guest speaker.
Oh, yes. I was recently up at Toowoomba, spoke there, and then I spoke down in Brisbane, and then I went to Lismore, and I was able to speak to people there in Lismore. We had about 70 people on a Tuesday night come out to Lismore, and had a great time of fellowship there with them.
Now, we've spoken before about the fact that these tracts that you're providing, glossy, high quality, great message, evangelical content in there, and you want to provide them to people free of charge. Take us through some of the most popular ones that you've got there, Vince.
Well, one of the newest ones I've got now and is very popular is what is called the Wallet Tract. And so it looks like a real wallet with an Australian $50 and $100 note sticking out the top. And it's done in cardboard. So this is a tract that you can leave anywhere. And it's got, I'd say, 99% a chance that this tract will be picked up. There's a danger, though, with this tract. If you leave it on the dashboard of your car, and it's clearly visible outside, more than likely you'll get a thief that you'll be witnessing to and a broken windscreen.
Okay, so it's so realistic, people will mistake it for a real wallet. You've got a really popular one we've spoken about before, the crocodile tracts. Remind us how they work.
Yes, well, I had a pastor ring me from the Northern Territory, and he wanted a crocodile tract, and so I wrote a crocodile tract for him. He's in an area in Katherine there and has a lot of tourists coming up for the tourist season. And so I got to work and put down this crocodile tract, and it's got a crocodile on the front. It says, "Welcome to the Northern Territory, our crocs love tourists." That then expanded because Northern Queensland has got crocodiles up there, and so I've got another one, "Welcome to Queensland, our crocs love tourists," and it's got a beach scene where the Northern Territory's got Ayers Rock behind and a tent there. And then a lady in England got one of the tracts, I think it was the Northern Territory tract, and she said, could you produce a generic Aussie crocodile tract? So she could give them out over there. So I've got another one, Aussie crocodiles, and then our crocs love tourists with a picture of the Aussie flag on the front and a cartoon smiling crocodile on the front as well.
Could get a bit of competition going here, Vince, between states and territories. Whose crocs love tourists more?
Well, that's right. And the other thing is I call these my tourist tracts. And the other thing is I can design tracts to suit a particular tourist location. So if you've got a church in a tourist area, you can ring me up and say, what about designing a tract for this area? And I'm able to do that. I've done one for Newcastle. It's called Newcastle's Big Rescue, and it's based on the fact that the Pasha Bulka got shipwrecked on one of our beautiful beaches here for a time.
Now, how hard is that to do, Vince? If someone's, say, on the Gold Coast or, say, Coffs Harbour or Port Macquarie or let's say Fremantle in WA, how hard is it if you say, well, I want 1,000 of these tracts for your town? What's the process for that happening?
Well, what I do is I would ask the person, what's the key tourist place in your town? What do the tourists come there for? And people would give me a bit of an idea, and then I start thinking about it and ask the Lord to give me directions. And then I would come up with a tract like that, and then I would normally get a church, if they were coming up with a specific tract, to order a couple of thousand so they can letterbox their town there, and also freely hand them out to tourists.
Okay, so if you're living in a gold mining town or a gemstone town, or if you're living in a town that's known for its rodeos, you could do something along those lines, and you're happy to do a design for people if they want to get really serious about tracts.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, now you get a fair bit of feedback from people all around the countryside. What sort of feedback have you been getting about your tracts, Vince?
Oh, well, I get letters and emails, and I get phone calls. I've got a letter here that's quite interesting. If I could read it out, it's only a short letter.
Yep.
Hello, the lady says, last time I ordered the sample pack of tracts and took them to show the people in my KYB group. One of the ladies said, can I take them home and give back to you next week? Next week at KYB, I asked about the tracts. She said, I gave them out at the shopping centre. This time, and she continues to write, says, this time, could I please have another sample pack, and please 35 of the crocodile tracts and 35 of the smaller tract of the Titanic. You are all doing a wonderful job with the tracts. Jesus said, go out and make disciples, and the tracts are a perfect resource to do that. God bless. This was from Lorraine in Queensland, and she says, P.S. I heard about your ministry on Vision Radio.
Fabulous. Hey, Vince, a thought occurring to me just as you're telling the story there, for people who want the paper, glossy tract that you can hand to someone, it's a physical handout. Are the tracts available in a digital form so that people can use it on their mobile devices and share them on social media? Have you got to that point yet? Is that something you might be aspiring to?
I do have some designs that are in digital form, not all of them, but there are a couple that are, yes.
Okay, and no doubt there'll be people who might be interested in getting a hold of those in a digital form, and that might even supercharge the opportunity to be able to hand out tracts. But of course, you're doing them for free if people want the hard copy. They're wanting the glossy tract as well. Hey, when you're getting invited to speak and you're doing a training on how to effectively hand out tracts, what sort of things are you talking to people about in churches?
Well, as I mentioned in a previous interview with my Titanic tracts, I try and make a tract that is glossy, that is, I must say, outstanding, if I can use that. Not to brag, but a tract that stands out because we have a standout gospel. We have an outstanding gospel of good news to tell people. And over the years, I've noticed a lot of tracts aren't particularly attractive, but I want to make mine attractive so that when someone gets a tract in their letterbox, they'll say, oh, what's this about? For instance, if they get my latest one about the corgis, what about the corgis? People have to open that tract to see what is this about. And so I make them glossy, I make them colourful. I have a graphic designer here in Newcastle that assists me greatly, and she does a tremendous job. And so I make them different, really different. I've got for instance, a couple of tracts that look like an optometrist test. You know, Neil, when you go in to the optometrist, and particularly in the old days before digital viewing, you'd go and you'd see the old white chart on the wall, and they'd give you the eye test. Well, I've got some of those made up like the old optometrist tests, and I've got one here, a picture of a grandma with glasses on the front, and it says, for we walk by faith, not by sight, and it's done in optometrist eye test, so it's just got the F at the top, and then ORWE, next line, and so on as it gets right through that verse there. And then it's got in small writing, for more information, read 2 Corinthians 5. And then on the back, it's got an explanation of the gospel. I was out on the street using this tract, and I said to a person, would you read that for me? And they actually stood there, and they read it out for me. For we walk by faith, not by sight. And then I went on to explain them what it was, what it meant to walk by faith and believe in the Lord Jesus.
Well, you've come up with these creative tracts and you've been touring around the countryside. Doors have been open and you're preaching in churches as well, and you're doing training on how to effectively use these tracts. I've got a note here, warming the pew or winning the lost. This is a popular message that you've been preaching around the place. What's the essence of that message? Warming the pew or winning the lost?
Well, it can be a temptation for Christians just to go to church and sit, soak and sour. You know, we're not meant to just sit and soak and sour. We're actually meant to go out and share with people the wonderful news of the gospel. And I gave this seminar up in Toowoomba. Actually, on November the 6th, I'll be in Tamworth speaking at a church there, where I'll be talking about the same things. And the essence of it is don't just sit in church, get your mind around the Great Commission and obey the Lord and use tracts, or go and talk to someone, talk to your neighbour about the Lord Jesus. You know, I did a study just recently on the word publish, and in the KJV it says in Deuteronomy 32 verse 3, I will publish the name of the Lord. Ascribe ye greatness unto our God. Psalm 26 verse 7 says, I may publish with the voice of thanksgiving and tell of all thy wondrous works. Psalm 68 verse 11, the Lord gave the word, great was the company of those that published it. Mark 13 verse 10, and the gospel must first be published among all nations. The Lord Jesus said that. Great study, Neil. Just do a study on the word publish.
And that is fabulous. And Vince, you're an inspiration to everyone who's listening into this conversation, no doubt. And just the fact that you've got a tract in your hand, or you've got one of your sample packs, or you've decided to order a whole bunch and you've got an assortment of all of these very creative tracts, that in itself is an inspiration to make sure those tracts get into the hands of someone who needs to hear that message. Now, to get a hold of absolutely free, glossy, high-quality Christian tracts, this is where you go. hiswordmedia.com. hiswordmedia.com. And Vince Wall is founder of His Word Media, and he's the pastor of the Newcastle Baptist Tabernacle. Vince, thanks so much for your update today on 2020.
Great to talk to you again, Neil. Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.